doesn't really seem like there's going to be anyone else coming, so I'm going to just start it. Let's see, and then this should be good. All right, welcome to Strategy. During the Dirty First, we're going to be talking about a little bit of defense today. So first off, if you're wondering like what even is defense in the first place, defense is taking away. So defense is the methodology behind defense is that taking away points from the other alliance is just as effective as giving your alliance points, because in the end you just have to win. You have to have more points than the other alliance. Sorry, I did a typo there. It's not outscore your alliance, it's outscore the opposing alliance. And so if you reduce another robot's ability to offensively play, that's just as good as gaining more points yourself. You don't need to get a high score. You just need to get a larger score than the opposing alliance. So that's kind of the methodology behind defense. And oftentimes it can be easier to take away points from the other team or reduce their ability to score points than scoring points yourself, especially with some robots. Maybe they don't have the ability to score offensively as many points. And so they can work defensively because FRC is pretty big on defense. They can work defensively to reduce someone's ability to score points. So we'll start off by saying defense is sometimes illegal. There's very strict rules on defense. For example, this is a 2020 game. You'll notice here that we have these like red zones here that are circled. If a red robot contacts a blue robot in these zones, it can actually be either way. It doesn't matter who initiates contact. With these triangle links, no matter who initiates contact, the opposing alliance will gain 15 points. So let's say red robot's chilling in their own red zone. They're protected there. If a blue alliance touches a red robot there, the red alliance will get 15 points. That's a lot. So you really do want to avoid that, and it's illegal. So you can't do it, otherwise you'll be pretty screwed. So there are limitations on defense. It's not a free for all, right? You can't just go crazy with defense. Another example of 2019 is that so we have the blue side on the left and we have the red side on the right side, and there's only one blue robot allowed to cross this center line, the line in the center of the field. You can see like the blue and red there. There's only one blue robot at a time allowed to be on the other side of the field. And that's just because defense was a pretty big thing in the 2019 game. You'll notice that there's just not a lot of space around here. We actually talked about that last strategy meeting. We talked about space and like choke points and stuff. So if you haven't watched it, I strongly encourage you to watch the video. It's on our YouTube channel. And so, let's see. Oh, let me see if I can hide floating meeting controls. Pog, yes. Anyways, so yeah, let me put Yuta back in. Oh, he's already in. Cool. So yeah, there's very specific rules. It varies from game to game because like here, there's not really specific sides of the field. There's more like cross pathing. So it's just these specific zones are illegal to do defense in. Here, you can do defense, but you can only do it one bot at a time. And so there's pretty heavy restrictions on defense, which is good. Otherwise, everything would be all defense and it wouldn't be too much fun. So yeah, you got to be careful with defense. It's legal, but you got to play it right. So there are more restrictions. There's not only defense zones, where it's like you can't have two bots in this zone. You also, so like imagine a scenario where a robot pins another robot to the wall for the entire match. That would be pretty unfair, right? That's pretty broken. You can't do that. That would just ruin the game. So these are the three types of defense. Yuta, I think you've seen these before. This was 2 years ago. I think I taught this. So let's say that you're the blue robot and the opposing robot is the red robot. And so the first one is pinning. So let's say the red robot's trying to score. I accidentally did the wrong image, I think. Let's just assume this is the red rocket and ignore the fact that this is actually blue. My bad. So let's say that red robot's trying to score, and the blue robot is the defender. So pinning is when you like push it against a wall. The arrow represents the direction that the robot is moving, and so the red robot's really unable to move. It's basically trapped here, and that's pretty OP. So there's a 5-second rule against that, and you have to wait 3 seconds before pinning again. And we have zoning, where you have a red robot right here, and it's trying to get to like this zone where it can score points. This blue robot can move side to side to prevent it from going to that zone. So that's called zoning. I would say zoning is probably the most common type of defense, just because zoning can also be done in fairly open spaces as well. You don't really need too much closed space. And finally, blocking is just literally moving right between it and its target area. And this was used a lot in 2019. So yeah, these are the 3 types of defense. Zoning and blocking, you could kind of think of them as pretty similar. They're very similar concepts in that red robot is trying to get somewhere, blue robot is preventing it from doing that, versus the pinning, where blue robot's actively shoving the red robot against some type of solid game element, whether it be a wall, it could be a pillar, it could be anything that's sturdy and solid that you can pin a robot against. So we're gonna show an example of pinning. So I think I screen shared it so that you can see a video here. So I'd like you guys to look on like this side of the field. You can kind of see it right here. So basically like the bottom right corner. And you can kind of see like this red robot is like shoving the blue robot against a wall right here. So that would be an example of pinning. As you can see, shoving, but then it has to back up. It has to back up a sufficient amount because you can't pin the robot for too long. It's illegal. So that's a good example of pinning right here. I'll replay it again. You can just see how it's shoved against a corner basically. But yeah, also notice how there's this there's a blue zone right here. If the red robot contacts the blue robot while the blue robot's in that zone, that's a 15-point foul. So this red robot's really got to be careful. And yeah, that's the example of pinning. Yeah, pinning is pretty self-explanatory. Oh, nope. Stop. All right, here's an example of blocking. Let me find where it was. I believe I was looking at 5026. All right, yeah, right here. Here's a good example of blocking. So we have 3310 in the top left corner trying to get a hatch panel onto the rocket, and 5026 is just there. They're just in the way. Like, you physically cannot get past that robot. That's a perfect example of blocking. You can see they're just sitting right in front of the field element, and then now 5026 pins them for just like a short minute, and then 3310. Yep, see, they're pinning them right now. But you'll notice that it's not an extensive pin because there's pretty strict rules on pinning, so you cannot pin for too long. It's just not going to work. So yeah, that's my example of pinning. And then finally, we're going to talk about zoning. And you probably also saw some examples of zoning in here, but here's a pretty good example of it. Oh, I forgot to set the time. Dang it. I think it was around like 1 minute something. You know, we'll watch the show until we get to the part where it zones. All right, here. This is a good. Okay, so you see this robot right here, the robot in the top right corner, not 1678. 1678 is over here. This robot right here. So, not only are they pinning, but also they zone. I think they let them through this time, but might be the next time that we look at it. Yep, and they're back to abuse that team more. Yes, here we go. This is a perfect example of zoning. They're literally moving side to side to not let this robot go back in. And eventually the robot has to like go around and stuff, which really isn't ideal because they have to loop all the way around to get to where they are. And now they're zoning this robot too. So that's a good example of zoning. If we go back here again, the top right corner, you can just see they're just kind of getting in the way. Blue robot wants to go over to, their side of the field, maybe score some cubes, and this red robot is preventing them from even going in that general area. You're keeping them confined to this area by zoning. So yeah, zoning. Stop it. Now, a good defender effectively shuts down opponents, drastically reducing their offensive ability. It's hard to find a good defender. It's not easy to defend because not only do you have to have no fouls, which is right here, you can't interfere with too much with your own alliance path, and you have to shut them down. And in some games, it's easier to shut down a robot. In some games, it's harder to do that. It also depends on the robot being defended. If you have a robot that's really agile, like maybe a robot with swerve drive where they can move in any direction, it's going to be a lot harder to defend a robot with swerve drive versus with West Coast drive, where you mainly drive straight and then you have to turn. You can't just drive sideways. So it's a lot easier to pin or zone robots with West Coast drive. So it depends on the drivetrain. It depends on the robot. And again, if you want to know like what robot would be good to defend, you can look at scouting. You can see have they been defended in the past? How well were they defended? Did they defend? Stuff like that. So yeah. And then the other thing that we can talk about is counter defense. It's not used as often these days. Well, it's never really been used too often. It's more common to just have normal defense, but usually both alliances will have defenders. And so you can reasonably expect that you are also going to be defended by your opposing alliance. So sometimes what you can do is you can have counter defense where you protect your own offensive robots from defenders. So it's like defending the defender. So if we go to the image here, let's say, so I'm using zones again here. So let's say we have like a team here, we have a team here, 2013, and then we have like this red bot is going to try to defend us. Well, this team right here can like be almost in the way and keep this robot from going into our zone. And so this is basically a strategy of counter defense where you're preventing the defender from messing with the offense. And so it can be effective if your alliance is outscoring the opposing alliance, and you're basically making your defender not too useful. You're allowing more opportunities for your own robots to score. And then yeah, like this team right here, like 6969, could also like play defense on opposing alliances too. You can have flexible rules because it's not an offensive robot. It's doing some type of defense. It's just counter defense or defense. Or offense too. I mean, you could have like this team like go and like get some like cargo over here or something. You just have to require coordination because in the end, 2813 and like this robot here would probably have interfering zones. So you do have to be really careful about that. All right, so defense is really straightforward. It's pretty, I mean, just basically just get in the way. I talked a little bit about the types of defense that you can do. And so I've decided not to have attractivity just because it's not really too necessary this week. And next week, we're going to be talking about like creating strategies and integration. So you guys can leave if you want. This is the end of the strategy meeting. Thank you guys for coming. And I will record and slap this on YouTube sometime soon. So, yep, peace. No activity. All right, see you, Clara.